Hey everyone, Hakurou Workshop, Satoshi Machihara, Part 8 of Custom Knife Series. Like and subscribe.
Was that too meta?
Alright, let's see how this turned out. Honestly, it looks pretty good. Curves are matching up really well. The front, beak, and forehead meetup is pretty clean as well. There's a little divot on the beak from when I filed it too much, but I should be able to get rid of that through sanding. So the next step is filing, sanding, and cutting this down. Okay, that's as far as I'm taking the knife now. Okay, let's see how it fits. I guess it's now time to finalize the matching curves of these, bevel, and finalize the beak. Okay, so right now I'm trying to figure out my final plan for doing the eye. First problem, I don't want to make the eye support any thicker because I only have this much material, very little material left on the other side. But a bird's eye needs to be larger than this. We already found out that putting a screw in place of the eye doesn't look great. So I do think I want a 1/8 thickness rod going through it. I have this assortment of nails in front of me, so I can test what various size circles look on the head. And here is a 1/8 size, see what it looks like. I think if it's darker, I painted this one black with Sharpie, like so. I think that's about a good size. The total thickness of this is 10.5 mils. So I'm gonna go 12 millimeters. So I have enough space to work with. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this 1/8 inch rod at 12 millimeters, but that's going to be after I thin the middle portion of it so it can fit in here. I'm going to cut a slit in here so I can push the middle portion into this. And then I'll lock it down with a piece of veneer over it. That solves the problem of the rod possibly coming loose. And I'm going to do this. Normally, it would be something like a lathe, a machine lathe, right? I don't have a lathe, but I do have a drill press. And you can do this with a drill as well. You just throw this in the chuck and you hold the trigger down, or in the case of the drill press, you just keep it on and you use it like you would a lathe, except it's in some other orientation. I hope that will work. I've never tried it before, so I'll see. Okay, two things. I first need to expand these holes to 1/8, and this is too long to fit in a drill press. So I could either cut it short and accept that some of the material will go to waste, or I could start with something a little bit more, something I'm fine with getting rid of, because I only have 2 of these metal rods. So I could just use this nail and then accept the fact that I would have to sand it down a little bit so that matches the final dimension, which I might be fine with. I mean, it's an experiment, why not, right? All right, now going back now, I think I need to just trust that both holes are just going to stay centered. These are tiny Dremel diamond polishing bits that I'm using to clean up the holes, because it's always tough to get in and clean out the insides of holes that were drilled. Now to cut the blade, I'm just going to be using a hacksaw. Let's go put this in the knot lathe. It's in the drill press. It is as centered as it's going to be. So let's see how it works. I just had a thought. Let's get some water on this. I also switched over to diamond files because I think it's going to work faster, and I know it's not going to ruin my other files. 1/10 of a mil left to go. Alright, I think we got it. Now I just have to cut this excess off and start getting some of this cut. Let's try just holding a blade up to it to see if I can get it cut off. Cool, that worked. So I need to mark it there and there. So I'm shaving to the top of this line and on top of this line. All right. Clean up that tip. So the left and the right are still a little bit uneven. I have to shave a little bit more off of this end. But I'm going to worry about that after rough assembly. See how much I need to still shave from both sides, and then I'm going to round the dome a little bit. Let's get a slot cut in here so that we can fit this bar. It's mostly fitting in. I think I need to round off the edges here because the corners of the pin, the difference between the two steps is not square, so I need to round it. Okay, that feels like it's in. Oh, wow. Wow, that was way too tight, and it delaminated some of this, which, painful. Oh, that side's fine. This side is a-okay. So either I need to sand this down, or I need to sand this open. Looks like it has an eyebrow now. So let's fix that. Honestly, the times of, oh, that broke, let's fix it with glue, let's hide it, is reaching an all-time high. Hopefully nothing shows up when I apply the finish. Okay, now that I've done rough assembly, I do know that I need to sand down this edge from the inside. As for the final length, I think if I match this length pretty close and then just dome off the top, that'll be perfect. Okay, I wiped off all the polishing compound from the surface, and it is a mirror finish. I mean, it's not the cleanest of mirrors, but I can see myself. I originally was going to blacken this using heat and oil, but now that I'm looking at it, I do kind of like just the silver as is. Okay, I walked inside and saw these. I still need to figure these out. I'm thinking, rather than going out to buy paint just for this, I do have black primer. I ended up doing 3 coats in total. I also added a step where I quickly hit the freshly painted surface with a heat gun to help the paint spread out and get a more even and thinner surface. Okay, so while the scales are drying, let's figure out getting a panel for this. I'll get a thin piece of veneer in this space first to fill the gap, and then use a second piece that I will heat bend to match this curve to place on top. Now, because this curve is going to be riding up to the inner panels, I'll have to cut this down and leave space on either side. Okay, so the walnut was a little too thick, but fortunately, or unfortunately, I have different thickness veneers. The maple is probably a little thinner, so that looks to be a pretty good fit. Now I just need to get the overlay piece, but for the final width, just as thick as the metal spacers, it should be fine. The more I think about it, it makes sense to make it as a little thinner than I needed to, just so that I'm not running into tolerance issues. It is now dry, and yeah, I think there's an angle in there somewhere. We need this tiny piece to sit on, oh, come on. This tiny piece to sit on top of here. Then we're gonna have this sit down on top. Okay. I think that is just as good and done and in as I can make it. Here's my to-do list. Sand down the surface a little bit just to get rid of any of the marks that might have happened. I need to wipe down the surface with 70% isopropyl alcohol to get rid of any finger stains, etc. I have the red dye made. 1 drop food coloring in 5 ml water. Oh, this is scary again. Because these look so nice. Why would I add anything to it, right? Well, because it's supposed to be a rosy finch, and right now it's just a boring brown-capped finch. Brown-capped thing. Yep, it's not a thing. They don't exist. Just brown-capped rosy finches. Alright, looking at an actual rosy finch. So most of the pink is going to be centered around here. And it's okay if the pink trails off and most of the wing is allowed to be white. Well, I decided to do this. I might as well do it. Okay, that went as well as it could. I just only need to do it a second time. Okay, there's just a few things I want to clean up. Mostly these edges where the pink is bleeding into the other wood veneers. I'm gonna try just hitting that with 400 grit sandpaper. I also worked on the transition between the light and the dark here, as well as cleaned up some of the wing markings. Okay, it is time. Let's first do a test piece. I do see some color coming off, so I should probably hit the pink parts last. Dry time is 1 to 2 hours. It's Colorado. I'm gonna do 1 hour. You know what? I completely forgot that I need to finish this thing too. Okay, first coat is dry. It's been over an hour. I do feel some roughness, so I'm going to follow the directions and buff this lightly with 400 grit sandpaper. Now, something I used to wonder is, it says buff, but how much are you supposed to buff? So in this case, I'm just doing a few passes until it just feels better. So just like 2-3 passes on it is making it a much smoother, much more pleasant texture. So I'm just calling that enough. Now, something to note for sanding, you really need to watch out for the corners, because hard edges, or even like soft rounded edges, it's so easy for that one place to bite into the sandpaper, and you'll end up removing more material that you meant to do, especially tiny corners like this, which is sharp on multiple sides. You can just easily scrape through a lot, maybe even through the entire thickness of the finish or paint. Yeah, don't neglect, because the later I have to do this, the more buildup I need to, the more of the wrong kind of buildup I need to fight. It is the next day. It is dry. It feels smooth. It feels very smooth. We also have the liners. It looks like black paint should. A little bit of texture difference between where the tape and the paint was, but it's all on the inside edges, so it's not important. So I think it's assembly time. It is finally done. One hand open, one hand closed. Good.